So Neil, at a listing presentation, how should a broker explain the agency disclosure form to the seller?
When you take a listing from a seller, the purpose is to let the seller know that you are going to be representing their interests. So you're going to check off the box that says you are representing the seller and or the landlord as the seller and or landlord's agent.
I noticed that the box for advanced informed consent for dual agency is also checked. Why is that the case?
As we've talked about, it's extremely important that in our environment that the broker obtain the flexibility to create dual agency in the future, and therefore you need to have that box checked. You need to have the box checked that where the seller gives or the landlord gives the broker advanced informed consent to dual agency. And as we talked about in previous videos, informed consent is the concept where the seller understands or the landlord understands this idea of dual agency.
And what happens when dual agency is created?
If a dual agency situation is created, because this box is saying it could be created, but when it is actually created, the broker is required to go back to the seller or the landlord and let them know that the dual agency was created.
Once the appropriate boxes indicating the type of agency are checked off, what happens next?
Well, then once it's filled out, the seller simply needs to print in their name and to sign and date the form.
I noticed there's a box for designated agents. What's this?
When the agency law was drafted, there was a recognition that that real estate broker companies have many agents that work for them. And so when we drafted the law, I participated in drafting the law, we wanted to give the consumer the ability to have one person advocate on behalf of the consumer. So it's possible in a transaction for the consumer to say, I would like this agent designated to represent my interest, and then it's possible for the other consumer to have another agent designated. In a seller-buyer situation, we could have, I would be designated to represent the seller, and another agent of the firm would be represented, would be designated to represent the buyer, to advocate on the buyer's behalf.
How do you complete the agency disclosure form with designated agents?
You simply write in the name of the designated agent. Now, there's no requirement that both designated agents be on the same form. I would recommend, though, that if a designated agent situation is created, that you simply let the other consumer know, the other party know, who the designated agent is.